I want to thank them, everyone who's been cheering me and everyone who was there today and everyone who's been part of my journey. Thank you.
Filipino fans took over Washington, D.C. for Alex Eala's debut before she had even unzipped a single racket bag. The humid July air over Rock Creek Park was already carrying something the D.C. Open marketing team hadn't budgeted for. The sound of Philippine flags snapping against the fences of a practice court, 3 time zones deep into a country that had never officially claimed her. Alex Eala, world number 56, hadn't yet hit a single warm-up ball. And yet every session she was scheduled to appear in had, according to community-organized reports circulating across the DMV, already sold out completely. What happened in the 9 days between a Makati shopping mall and a Washington tennis center is the part the WTA is still trying to catch up to. Rewind to July 18, 2025, 9 days before her Washington debut. Eala walked into the Glorietta Activity Center in Makati for a Globe-hosted event called Home Court. Welcome home, Alex. The venue overflowed. Cameras from ABS-CBN, Inquirer Sports, and the Manila Times documented a crowd that had come to send off a 20-year-old boarding a plane for a tournament she had never played in her life. Her Instagram farewell to the Philippines carried 3 words that would echo across every group chat from Quezon City to Alexandria, Virginia. Never been prouder. Then she boarded the flight. The Mubadala City DC Open, a combined ATP and WTA 500 event running July 21st through 27th, had built its 2025 promotional cycle around a very familiar cast. Jessica Pegula as the number 1 seed, Naomi Osaka as the returning storyline, Aryna Sabalenka, Marta Kostyuk, defending champion Leylah Fernandez, and Venus Williams on a singles wild card. The WTA's own field release named Eala in the marquee lineup, but as the 4th name down the page, a supporting act at a tournament historically driven by American ticket buyers. That framing wasn't unreasonable. It was also, as the ticketing patterns would soon suggest, catastrophically outdated. Because while the DC Open's marketing department had built a promo cycle around famous names, Filipino fans across the DMV had built a takeover. Start with what the WTA put in writing. In early July, the tour published a headline confirming that Venus Williams and Alexandra Eala would team up again in Washington doubles, a reunion of the pair that reached the quarterfinals in Bad Homburg back in June. Read that sentence slowly. A 7-time Grand Slam singles champion, 45 years old, playing her home country's tournament, chose a 20-year-old from Manila as the partner she wanted next to her at the net. That is not a press release courtesy. That is a cosign. Then look at the pattern. Indian Wells 2025, the BNP Paribas Open published its own official recap under the headline with fans behind her again. Eala wins desert debut. Miami 2025, quarterfinal and semifinal stadiums draped in Philippine flags, Tony Nadal in her box, a viral run that ended in a semifinal loss, but a global rebrand. Wimbledon 2025, center court against the defending champion, Iga Swiatek. Filipino fans queued overnight, and the win, 7-6, 6-2, triggered a national trending moment back home. First Miami, then Indian Wells, then Wimbledon. Every stop had already been retroactively defined by Filipino turnout. And Washington, with the largest Filipino community on the East Coast and the Philippine embassy sitting inside the tournament city, was the escalation everyone in Manila had already circled on the calendar. Everyone, apparently, except the tournament promoters. Now compress the timeline. July 18th, an overflowing fan meet in Makati. July 19th, wheels up from Manila. July 21st, tournament week opens in Washington. July 24th, the draw is released, pairing Eala in the round of 32 against her friend Zeynep Sönmez of Turkey, a player she leads 2 matches to none, having beaten her on grass at Eastbourne just weeks earlier. 7 days, 2 hemispheres, 1 player, and a ticketing story that, according to multiple Filipino tennis outlets tracking session availability across the DMV, saw community groups organizing bulk purchases before some American fans had even checked the schedule. Here is where the audience earns its credit. The people watching this channel called this months ago, when mainstream tennis media was still debating whether Eala's Miami run was a fluke. The community that had been buying her tickets in Indian Wells in Miami and Bad Homburg in London, that community was already telling the sport what it was going to look like. Washington is not the moment the world discovered Alex Eala. Washington is the moment the sport ran out of ways to pretend it didn't already know. And there is one more layer the tournament could not have scripted. The defending 2024 DC Open singles champion, Leylah Fernandez, is half Filipina on her mother's side. A deep run from both women in the same draw would put two players carrying the Philippine flag through the same bracket at the same American tournament. That is not a subplot. That is a bracket the entire Philippine sports internet would collapse around. Consider who is standing next to Alex Eala on court in Washington. Venus Williams. 7 Grand Slam singles titles. 14 Grand Slam doubles titles alongside her sister. 4 Olympic gold medals. A career spanning 4 decades of professional tennis that has watched hundreds of prospects arrive and disappear. At 45 years old, returning to a tournament in her home country, Williams did not need a doubles partner for exposure. She had every legend in the sport available to her. She picked Alex Eala again after Bad Homburg in front of a Washington crowd. That decision, quiet, unspoken, documented only by a WTA press release confirming the entry, is a louder endorsement than any quote Williams could have given a microphone. When a player of that magnitude puts her Hall of Fame body next to yours on a doubles court for the second tournament in a row, the debate about whether you belong at this level is finished. It was finished the moment she said yes. Zoom out from the Rock Creek Park practice courts, and the picture changes shape. Southeast Asia has been treated by the WTA calendar as a developing market with no marquee player for 2 decades. Washington is the first live experiment in whether that assumption still holds. If the community reports of Filipino session buyouts translate into visible stadium turnout, it recalibrates the ticket math for the next 3 stops on the calendar. The Canadian Open in Montreal starting July 27th, Cincinnati in August, and the U.S. Open beginning August 24th in New York, where the Filipino diaspora across the tri-state area outnumbers the DMV several times over. This is what a nation of over 100 million people looks like when it decides a tournament belongs to it. Not a marketing campaign. Not a hashtag push. A pilgrimage. And every tournament director on the North American hardcourt swing is now watching Washington to see just how large that pilgrimage actually is. The prediction is simple. If DC delivers what Manila, Indian Wells, and Miami have already delivered, Arthur Ashe's outer practice courts in late August become the loudest Filipino gathering in American tennis history. Washington is also a reset. 3 weeks before her debut, Eala walked off the court at Queen's Club having lost in straight sets to Iva Jovic, a defeat that ended a 6-match grass-winning streak. Berlin had ended in a semi-final loss to Linda Noskova. Wimbledon closed with a tense third-round scare against Barbara Krejcikova. She didn't post excuses. She flew home to Manila, walked into a room in Glorieta-packed past capacity, told her supporters this was her breakthrough year, and left the country with the words, "Never been prouder," pinned to her Instagram. The grass court disappointments didn't travel with her. The Makati crowd made sure of that. An overflowing hall in Makati. A farewell that read, "Never been prouder." A 7-time Grand Slam champion co-signing her for a 2nd straight tournament. An embassy inside the tournament city. A defending champion who shares her heritage, sitting in the same draw. The DC Open didn't schedule Alex Eala's debut. Filipino fans built it around her. And the WTA is about to find out what happens when a country of over 100 million people decides an American tournament is theirs. Here is the question the comment section exists to answer. Will the Washington crowd be louder for Alex Eala than for any American in the draw, including a defending champion who is half Filipina herself? Stake your prediction now, before the first ball is struck, because after this week, the answer becomes obvious to everyone. If you want to call on the record before Montreal, Cincinnati, and Flushing Meadows turn this into a full summer story, this is the moment to put it in writing. Subscribe, drop your prediction, and let the next tournament prove which side of the takeover you were on.